All right, guys. So I actually have a legitimate political story for you guys today. As Democratic Senator from Arizona, Miss Kyrsten Sinema was caught in an interview with Mr. John Cornyn, who's a GOP senator from Texas, basically responding to Joe Biden, low key, kind of high key, honestly, calling out her and Joe Manchin for not being on board with his agenda, even though they have voted with Biden 100% of the time, more than some progressive senators and legislators. However, Biden is getting a lot of pressure from the left. Okay, he's getting a lot of pressure from the left to advance his agenda, right? Or at least the agenda that he says that he wants on paper. Okay, and this is putting Biden in a tough spot because it seems like people like Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, they're not budging. Okay, and like I said in my last video I did about this yesterday, I think it'll be interesting to see whether or not they actually are moved on these issues. Okay, mainly the issue of the filibuster, because the progressives really want to get rid of the filibuster so they can just ram through anything they want. Okay, just ram through the Democrat agenda, and Kyrsten Sinema is standing in the way. Now, she goes out in this interview and she gives a indication of whether or not she's actually going to budge. Take a listen.
I want to change the subject for just a moment. Why did you not vote on the 1-6 commission?
I had a personal family matter. Thank you.
Now, when we talk about the filibuster, and I know that John Lewis is your hero. You've said that on many occasions.
Yes.
You voted for him in Congress instead of Nancy Pelosi. But without amending the filibuster or getting rid of the filibuster, a lot of your colleagues in the Senate say that that's not going to pass. And some people are saying that you have a choice between the filibuster and democracy. Your answer to that?
Well, as folks in Arizona know, I've long been a supporter of the filibuster because it is a tool that protects the democracy of our nation, rather than allowing our country to ricochet wildly every 2 to 4 years back and forth between policies. The idea of the filibuster was created by those who came before us, the United States Senate, to create comity and to encourage senators to find bipartisanship and work together. And while there are some who don't believe that bipartisanship is possible, I think that I'm a daily example that bipartisanship is possible. Not just this trip today and tomorrow that John and I are doing, but the work that John and I and many other of my colleagues in both parties do on a regular basis. So to those who say we must make a choice between the filibuster and X, I say this is a false choice. The reality is that when you have a system that's not working effectively, and I would think that most would agree that the Senate's not a particularly well-oiled machine, right? The way to fix that is to change your behavior. Not to eliminate the rules or change the rules, but to change your behavior. So I'm going to continue to go to work every day, aggressively seeking bipartisanship in a cheerful and happy warrior way, as I always do, and showing that when we work together, we can get things done. Thanks. We do have to go. Thanks, you guys.
So you're not going to budge on the filibuster?
No.
All right, guys. So, there's a lot of things there that she said that I really, really like. First and foremost, the January 6th commission, in which she said that she didn't show up to vote because she had a personal family issue. Now, basically, I think this is BS, obviously, okay? She just didn't want to attach her name to a vote. She didn't want to go yes or no, okay? And she also knows, right? That's an acknowledgement that that bill in and of itself was nothing but a basically Democrat Trojan horse to continue to go after Trump and use it as ammunition against the Republican Party. She knows that. The Democrats know that. And a lot of people are pissed off at her for not showing up to vote in that January 6th commission. Okay, because the liberals like to frame it as the key to democracy is passing this bill. Don't you just love how liberals frame stuff? When she talked about the filibuster, she's 100% correct, right? Our government is not designed to be efficient. It's not. It's actually designed to be inefficient. The reason why is because of stability, right? You're not supposed to just be able to ram through laws, okay? You have to have bipartisan agreement. That's how you maintain a stable government. That's why we're not like some of these other countries, right? That, try democracy, but can't get it right because there's too much swings in power. Stability is important, okay? It just is. And she understands how the filibuster, removing it, could lead to a much more unstable government when it comes to legislation. Okay, because 50 votes, if you just need a simple majority, I think that's going to lead to some problems down the road. Okay, for as polarized as we are right now, we need less polarization and really more bipartisanship. And I think she realizes that. And I'm glad that she realizes that, and I'm glad that she's speaking out about this because it's the truth. It's the truth. At this point, we're as divided as we've ever been. And like I told you, Congress is not designed to be efficient, but it's also not designed to be this inefficient, right? To the point where we literally can't get anything done unless, corporations need a bailout, right? That's the only time the politicians can really agree on anything nowadays, okay? That's the only time they can agree on anything. When it comes to anything else, they can't agree, okay? There's always some issues. So Kyrsten Sinema saying this, I think is good because it forces Biden to be a moderate, okay? It forces him to actually want to negotiate with the Republicans, and it basically means that he's going to have to ignore the progressives. Now, this creates a problem for the Democrat Party. And the reason why is because a lot of people in the Democrat Party are framing the filibuster as standing in the way of democracy. Okay, they see removing the filibuster as the final nail in the coffin for the Republican Party because, like I've told you guys before, they can pass that John Lewis Voting Rights Act. They can make D.C. a state. They can do all types of things to solidify their majority in Congress. Okay, and that's why they really want to get rid of it. Because if they get rid of it, what happens is people like Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, they now become expendable. Okay, they become expendable. They don't matter as much. Let's say they get rid of it. If they win in 2022 or, win some seats in 2022, now what happens is that they're in a position to gain more power. Okay, they're in a position to gain more power. So Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema right now, because they're from swing states, they're incentivized to just be like, no, we need to play it moderate. Okay, we need to play it moderate. And this is actually a position of strength. And the reason why is because if the Democrats decide to try to primary them with somebody else, there's no guarantee that somebody that's more far left than they are is actually going to win. Okay, in a state like Arizona or West Virginia, you can easily have a Republican win that seat. So them trying to primary Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema, that also might not be an option as well. At this point, these two senators are basically forcing the Democrats to negotiate with the Republicans. And quite honestly, guys, it really is noble. Okay, even though they're Democrats, this type of behavior honestly gains a lot of respect from me. It really does. Because at this point, Biden has spent so much money. I think we need to chill out on spending money and really figure out how to resolve our debt issue. Okay, sometimes enough is enough. But the Biden administration and the Democrats don't know when enough is enough. Okay, and right now they're currently negotiating this infrastructure package. And the biggest hang up is the amount being spent and how to pay for it. Now, the Biden administration, I think they start off at 2.3 trillion. Okay, the GOP start off at about 600 billion. Biden worked his way down to 1.7 trillion. The GOP worked their way up to about 930 trillion-ish. And they're inching closer. Okay, they're inching closer. Now, again, some progressives are like, no, Biden, stop negotiating with the Republicans. They're not going to want to spend enough. They're not going to want to do enough. But again, he can't do that without Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema being on board. Because if they're not on board, then they're not going to be able to pass it through reconciliation. Okay, they're not going to be able to pass it. So right now, they're forced to negotiate with the Republicans to a certain extent. And when it comes to the corporate tax increases, the GOP has basically said that increasing taxes at all is a non-starter. Okay, they dropped the corporate tax rate to 21%. Joe Manchin wants to bring it up 25%, but not 28%. Biden wants to bring up to 28%. Okay, However, Biden knows that this is a non-starter, so he's also proposed some other things like an alternative minimum tax of 15% for companies that have revenues over $2 billion a year. I mean, the Republicans have proposed paying for it in other ways, with gas taxes and usage taxes and things of that nature. So they're trying to work on a pay for. However, my gut feeling is that if a deal does get done, if it is bipartisan, it'll probably be about 1 trillion, 1.2 trillion, and it won't be paid for. Okay, it won't be paid for because in Washington they never pay for anything. Okay, and the reason why is because Democrats like to spend and raise taxes. Okay, and Republicans like to spend and cut taxes. Okay, and when those are your two options, nothing's ever gonna be paid for. So at this point, I'm not even really on board with the whole infrastructure thing, even though I was more open to it before. But now, considering the amount of money that's been spent, how much money Biden wants to continue to spend, and potential inflation, I think it's best to hold off. And I would like to see these politicians actually focus on solving our debt problem at some point. Okay, that's what I would like to actually see them do. Okay, I'm not saying that we don't need infrastructure upgrades, but the time to do it, honestly, would have been under Trump, when Trump wanted to spend $1 trillion. And honestly, this would be a slap in the face to Trump. If the Republicans fold and actually spend $1 trillion on infrastructure under Biden, honestly, this would be such a big slap in the face to Trump. Because when they had the chance to do it, when it was politically acceptable to do it under Trump, particularly during COVID, McConnell said no. Okay, McConnell blocked that. Now, all of a sudden, they're open to negotiating with Biden after Biden has spent all this money. Like, what type of sense does that make? Because McConnell's main reason for not wanting to do infrastructure spending under Trump was that he didn't want to spend a bunch of money. Okay? He had questions about how it would be paid for. Now, all of a sudden, under Biden, the Republicans are willing to actually negotiate. You had a Republican president, you didn't want to do nothing. So, I mean, at this point, I don't know if the Republicans are actually going to go over $1 trillion. It seems like they're itching closer. It seems like a lot of Republicans do want to get infrastructure spending done. This is a Republican priority to a certain extent. Okay. However, their willingness to spend and how they're actually going to pay for it, I got real questions for both sides on that issue, because it seems like when it comes to both parties here, they never come to an agreement on actually how to pay for it because it hurts. Okay. It hurts them politically. Taxes hurt, and nobody really wants to cut spending. So now we're left with just spending more money, printing more money. And that's just kind of how it goes in politics, guys. So it's good to see that Kyrsten Sinema is not budging on getting rid of the filibuster. That's good for her. That's good for democracy. Okay. And I'm really happy that she is really trying to be bipartisan. I really do appreciate that, because I think that our country is better when both sides do work together. No matter how polarized things are, we can have our differences, but at the end of the day, bipartisanship is essential for a functioning democracy. Okay, you just can't have one side getting everything they want. That we're designed to compromise. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.